Okay, so the next part of this story, we're in December 2015. The next part of this story now is all out of prison. I had just got out. I got thousands in my pocket now. I've made a lot of money selling stuff in prison. I was also on a Cat D wing in Dartmoor, so I was able to go out and work and earn some money. So I had something behind me now. I wasn't getting out in the normal position, because when you get out of prison, you normally end up with what they give you is a discharge grant. It's about £45, something like that. Maybe not even that much. It's about between £40 and £45. It's basically your first week's dole money, because one of the first things you've got to do when you get out of prison is you've got to go and sign on. And that takes about a week or so to process. So they give you 40 odd quid when you get out of prison, and that's it. It's a discharge grant. They give you a train ticket if you haven't got anybody to meet you at the gate, and you wander off. Many times I've sat at Plymouth train station. It's your first real taste of freedom coming out of Dartmoor prison. It's great. It is nothing like being out. There's lots of girls around. You suddenly notice how many girls are around, because in prison you only ever see the female prison staff or a handful of women who might be working in the prison. So just seeing people walking around, old people, young people, just everybody going about their day-to-day lives, and no one really giving a fuck who you are. In prison, obviously everyone's always on your back, and you've always got to, you're always loud and aggressive and trying to, be in your pecking order and things like this. But when you get out, life is very different. No one gives a fuck who you are. No one cares. You're just out and about. Now, one of the things I noticed in prison is you can be, a medium guy in prison. So you don't have to be big. You don't have to be loud or aggressive. But the minute you get out of prison and you go back amongst your normal people, you're a lion walking among men, because you've been exposed to a harder way of life than the soft way of life that people are living outside. So I found myself coming out of prison quite often being a lion among men. So it was just before Christmas. I'm out. I had contacted my mum because we'd started to get on a bit better, and I think I got out maybe 2 weeks before Christmas, or maybe even a week before Christmas. And I contacted her to say, listen, what are you doing for Christmas? It would be good if we all met up as a little family, me and my younger brother. And she messaged me to say that she's moving away. She's met a bloke, and she was going to be moving up country 3 days before Christmas to go and spend time with him. A bit of a shitter, really, but that's not unusual for my mum, really. She was never really a hands-on mum or a close mum, and I think that's probably why we all end up in prison, to be honest. But the upside of that was she was going to give me her house. She was renting a house out. It had a couple of months' rent still paid on it, and she was willing to give me the place to go and stay. Now, I was getting out of prison at that point with no fixed abode. The best I'd been offered was a sofa at a friend's house. So for her to offer me the chance to go and stay in her house was absolutely spot on. I hadn't discussed the living situation with my girlfriend too much. Things had gone very well with her at the time. We were getting back together pretty much. We'd been meeting up a lot while I'd been able to get out of prison, while I was at Dartmoor on that Category D wing. So things were going very well with her. We hadn't really discussed the living situation when I got out. She kind of just assumed that she was moving in with me, and because I just got out of prison, I just went with it. Really, I didn't. That wasn't a battle. I wasn't in a position to. We'd lived together previously, and I wasn't in a position where I was just going to go and tell her I didn't want to live with her. I just spent 2.5 years in prison. It was, waking up next to a girl was probably something that I found quite appealing. So the day I got out of prison, my ex-girlfriend moved in with me into this little house of my mum's, and things were very good. I didn't have any pressures of money, so I was able to just sit back. I got myself a nice phone. I got myself a little Xbox. The telly was already there, so I just sat back for a few days and just made some money. Basically, I went and bought. The first thing I went and did was hooked up with an old friend from Dartmoor. I went up to Plymouth and got myself a kilo of hash. and took it to Newquay, broke it up into little bits and sold it off. And that was what I'd known for a lot of my life, is getting drugs, selling them, passing them on, making some money, going partying. The girlfriend that I was with wasn't really into crime. She loved the fact that I was a criminal. It made her very excited, but she hated the crime and the criminal aspect of it. So I told her I was going straight. Part of the deal when you came out of that Good Boys wing on Dartmoor is that they gave you a job at the end of it. I'd been working out on the Forestry Commission, and they offered me a job. Even though I'd fucked up at the end, the job offer still stood. So I said to them, listen, give me a couple of weeks and I'll start working. But obviously the partying lifestyle kicked in first. So I took my kilo of hash, went and sold it, got my money, went and partied. I told my girlfriend that I was working in Plymouth. So that gave me 3 or 4 days to go partying without any hassles. And I came back with some money in my pocket, so it didn't seem unbelievable that I was off working. But every time I'd come back, I'd be, coming down, or I would be, just feeling rough from drink and drugs and everything. And obviously, while I was in Newquay, I wasn't 100% faithful. But you got to remember, I've just come out of a long prison sentence, and suddenly I'm muscly. I've got money about me, and what can I say? Girls like criminals. So that was my life pretty much for the next few weeks. I would be working a few days, 2 or 3 days during the week. I'd then be going and buying drugs, selling them in Newquay, and just partying basically. I got into these circles of people who sold ketamine, who sold cocaine, who sold pills, who sold all range of drugs. And basically I was just a little enforcer. I'd be fighting, I'd be selling stuff. I was gone full whack back into my old lifestyle basically. The only thing I wasn't doing was I wasn't robbing any drug dealers at the moment. I didn't need to do that. That at that point I saw was risky. That was what had got me back into prison twice before, so I wasn't about to go and rush straight into that. I was making a good little living, selling bits and pieces, and working part-time as well, so everything was going good for me really. One day I get a phone call from one of my friends who was in an open prison in Bristol. I forget the name of it now. Ley Hill. He was in Ley Hill. Now, he'd been one of my good friends when I was on the Cat D wing. He hadn't got out when I did. He progressed his way through, and he went off to a Category D prison and was serving out his time there. Now, he enjoyed steroids, and he got caught with steroids in his cell in this Category D prison. So he phones me up and says, listen, I'm escaping tonight. Now, escaping from a Category D prison doesn't sound... isn't as hard as you think, actually. It sounds quite bad, but it's not as hard as you think. Now, bear in mind, now a Category D prison, there's no locks on the doors, on the cell doors. You've got a lock on the wing. There's very few staff that are knocking around on the wings. They kind of leave you to it. You're trusted. There's a small fence around the prison, but it's a 6-foot one. It's not a 20-foot one like you do in most prisons. There's staff on the gate, but because most of the inmates go out working every day, a lot of the time, I've heard, I don't know from experience, that you can just walk out through the front gate and the staff don't even challenge you because, it's on you. If you walk out, then you're in trouble, You're trusted to be there and you get a lot of benefits from being there. So most prisoners want to stay there because if you F up, then you're going back to a Category B prison or Category C prison, and you all your benefits are gone. So yeah, my pal, he got caught with steroids, so he's phoning me up from his prison cell that night saying, listen, I'm going to escape. Can you come and get me? I'm going to escape. Can you come and get me? Those aren't the words that I wanted to be hearing right now. Bearing in mind, I've spent the last 6-7 years in prison, doing 2 or 3 sentences. I'm out. Things are going well for me. I do not need to be driving up to Bristol and helping someone escape from prison. I quickly weighed it up in my mind, and I thought the chances of him actually coming to me, I'm a good 200 miles away from him. The chances of him actually coming to me are slim. So what I said was, look, I can't break you out of prison, but what I can do is if you come to me, I will put you up. And he was cool with that. Put the phone down, and I didn't hear anything else for a bit. Later on that night, he calls me, and he's like, that's good. I've got someone to pick me up. He goes, can you still put me up if I get out? And I'm like, yeah, if it happens, get to me, I will put you up. Don't worry about it. So yeah, again, thinking nothing of it. I'm thinking that, you know, there's a long way between me and him. Chances are he's probably not going to break out of prison, and chances are he's never going to make it down to me. So I thought I was pretty safe in that. The next morning, I get a phone call from my pal. He's down the road. He's broke out of prison. He's driven down, yeah, he's down the road from me with his rucksack of stuff. Tell him where I am. He gets dropped off, and he comes and spends a few days with me. I get him drunk. I get him laid. I get him off his face, yeah. And then after a little while, he went off and stayed with one of my other friends. But yeah, that was the day that one of my pals came and escaped from prison. I'm still good friends with him now. He's a really, really good lad, completely out of trouble. I gave him some ketamine and sent him on his way. He ended up spending about 9 months out of prison because there was never really a good time. Because bearing in mind, obviously, he came to see me just after Christmas, so he wanted to spend the summer out. And then obviously once you've done the summer, then you want to spend Christmas out as well. So there's, you know, you're either sending yourself back into back into prison for Christmas, or you're sending yourself back into prison for summer. There's never a right time. But he went back. He didn't even get any extra time really. I think he just had to do the extra days that he missed. And then yeah, he got out. He's doing good. He's good. He owes me one for this. So I've got one in my back pocket now from him. And that favour gets called in later on in this story. So now, obviously, with however it goes for me, I always party too hard. I always end up spending too much money, and never turning up for work. So that started to happen. I started to spend more money on drugs. I started to do more drugs. You know, it became more of a party lifestyle than a drug dealing lifestyle. And I ended up quickly coming towards the bottom of my cash after a few months. I think I got to about March, April time, and yeah, I was starting to run out of cash. One of my times when I was in Newquay, I was with a group of lads, and he said to me, "You're from such and such town. There's a guy there who owes me 17.5 grand. If you collect it, you can have half." Now, I learned a little bit about him. The guy seemed to be a bit of numpty. Nothing really about him. So I was, yeah, I'll do that. It's my town. There's going to be very little repercussions from it. So yeah, I'll go and rob him. Now, I put very little effort into actually doing this because from the story he told me, the guy was going to be in the house on his own. He didn't really have any pals. I didn't know him, you know, bearing in mind I've been drug dealing in my town for a long time. I didn't know this guy. So I just thought it's going to be, you know, he's easy meat. I got myself a hammer, got myself a little balaclava, and I went round there. I went round there one day, and the house looked kind of dead and quiet. It didn't really do anything, didn't really stand out. There's no CCTV, there's no kind of defences or anything. So I went back round the next morning at 6 a.m. This was the time that sometimes I like to do these things, because you're going to catch people unawares. That, you know, they're normally not ready for this. I sat outside and I waited. The house was usual looking, nothing making me think like there was going to be a problem. So yeah, I went about my normal way. The way I normally go about robbing people would be I would go and knock on a door, just a normal knock, not like a police knock or anything. I don't want them coming to the window, look in, ring the bell. I just want them coming to the door normal and not suspecting anything. Now, as soon as the door opens a crack, I Spartan kick it, bam! Just kick the door hard as you can. And I want to just basically boot whoever's behind the door, send them flying. I quickly walked in. There was a girl behind the door. I slammed the door shut and I grab her by the hair and I drag her into the front room. Once I've walked in there, I see old boy on the sofa, and he kind of looks at me surprised. It's about 7 a.m. now. You can see he's like awake just. And bearing in mind this is a weekday morning. This was like a Tuesday morning, something like this. So they're up and about. Now, I threw the girl down onto the floor, and I pointed to the man, and I said, listen, you owe, you're going to pay. This girl, I thought, would have stayed on the floor and kind of just kept out of it. You know, I wasn't there for her, and I'm not really interested in throwing women around normally. But she jumped up, and she jumped on my back like some sort of wild animal. She started screaming, scratching at my face, pulling my hair, just going for it basically like some sort of banshee. Old boy jumped up and ran. He just legged it upstairs, and I didn't see him again. Old girl was jumping on me and pulling me around and trying to get me onto the floor basically. I had a hammer in my hand, and the last thing I want to start doing is swinging the hammer up behind my head trying to get this girl off me. So I had to put the hammer down, and I'm bending over trying to grab her and throw her off my back while she's attacking me. And all while I'm doing this, I can hear old boy, and he's on the phone now, and it's the 999 call. I need help. Someone's just kicked his way into my house. He's trying to attack my missus with a hammer. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just, oh my days, what's going on? This is the worst situation I'd ever been in. Whenever I'd rob drug dealers, normally I've robbed a house with 5 men in there before, and every one of them just sat there and did nothing, and sat and did exactly as I told them to do. Fear is a hell of a thing. Even then, the odds are on your side sometimes. People can be frozen solid without a plan, lost at sea. But today, this little 5'2" fucking woman, crackhead, she went for me. So old boy's upstairs. He's phoning the police. I can hear him on the phone, and it's all going tits. I'm not going to be able to recover this situation. You know, there's no way that I'm going to be able to stop the police coming in, get the money off me, and get old girl off my back. So I've got to abandon this now. I managed to get old girl off me. I rip her from my shoulders basically, and throw her onto the sofa. I pick up my hammer, and I leave. Now, when I open the front door, there's a policeman stood the other side of it. Unbeknownst to me, when the 999 call went in, the policeman was on patrol at the end of the road in his car, so he's quickly just done a U-turn, pulled it out front. He heard the screaming. He didn't even need to know which number it was. He heard the screaming from outside, and he come running to the front door. Just as I've opened the front door, he's looked at me surprised, and I've just banged him in the mouth with it's the hand that I've got the hammer in, but it's my fist that I've hit him with, and he's just gone back. I didn't even see what happened to him. I didn't know, I just ran. I've started to put in some Linford times. There was a building site as I was running, so I took the hammer and I just launched it into the building site, thinking that, you know, a hammer in a building site isn't going to ever get noticed. But funnily enough, the builders reported it because they knew that a hammer attack had happened on the other street, and then they found a hammer on the building site, so they reported it and handed it in. It didn't have a print on it, but obviously they recovered the weapon. And then I just ran, and I'm fit at this time. You know, I'm mid-20s. I was, obviously I've been training in prison a lot, and I'm athletic, so I dusted all these policemen. I ran across town, and it was a weird situation. It was a bit like one of those zombie films where I'm putting in Linford Christie times, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and I can just see this slow policeman just plodding along, jogging. Oh, fuck this! So I put in a couple of corners, and I dust again, and I'm running. Look over my shoulder. Just turn around, I can see this policeman just plodding along, just running. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? So again, I'm running. A couple more corners, a couple more angles. I'm starting to get a little bit tired now. Look over my shoulder, and there's, again, policeman just slowly running, jogging. What I didn't know is that it was 3 different policemen. So as I'm losing one copper, another one's pulling up in a police car, jumping out and chasing me. And I was just getting away from him. Another policeman would pull up and things. So I'd managed to, put in the performance of my life here and get away. But I was starting to get tired, and I was running in the direction that was going slightly uphill, so it was getting harder and harder for me. I then decided to jump into some back gardens to try and hide somewhere. because I didn't think I'd be able to run anymore. So I quickly tried a couple of gates and they were locked, and then there was one gate that was open, so I quickly ducked into that gate, shut it behind me. The garden was pretty featureless. There was nothing in the garden apart from this little 2-foot wall, a 2 or 3 foot wall, just right underneath the kitchen windows and things. So I quickly just laid down there, and then bearing in mind it's like 7-8 o'clock in the morning now, there's a good chance that whoever's in this fucking house might be looking out their kitchen window or coming to the fucking window at some point for something. So I'm laying there, my phone's in my pocket, and I'm starting to get little buzzes, because bearing in mind I'm a drug dealer, people are getting up, they want their fucking they want their ketamine. My phone is starting to buzz in my pocket. It's pressing against a slate that was on the floor. Now I'm trying not to move as much as I can, but this phone is buzzing. It's going. It's like it sounds like an air raid siren going off. So I'm just trying to move my pocket slowly. I'm leaning against this wall. I'm only just being able to hide behind this wall. Now I can hear sirens coming from all directions now. It's filling the air. Now as the sirens get closer, as the police cars get closer, they switch the sirens off. So all you're hearing is sirens from a distance, and then as they get closer, it's getting quieter and quieter. Then I can hear the police have basically cordoned off the area. They didn't know where I was, so they've made a ring around it, so they know I'm in this circle somewhere, but they don't know where. Now they've got all the time in the world now. Basically they can spend the rest of the day looking for me. I can hear them getting the dog. I can hear their little radios beeping, like doop, doop, boop, as they're going around, and you can hear them walking, and they're going garden to garden now, and they're getting closer to my garden. I can hear the breath from the dog. The dog was called Bilbo. I remember that because of the Lord of the Rings. And I heard them in the garden next to me. Then I heard him come out of that garden, I heard him walk along the lane, and I heard him open the same gate that I just opened a moment ago. I heard the police dog walk into the garden. I heard the footsteps of the police behind him, behind the dog. I could hear the dog get more excited. The dog started to bark and snarl and growl. I could hear the policeman struggling to hold the dog back, and it was going for something. But it wasn't me. This old lady shouted out, and the police pulled the dog back. The police dog had lunged at a small terrier in the garden next door to the garden where I was hiding, and they put the police dog back on the lead. The old lady said, "Oh, don't worry, I've been out here. I've been putting my washing on the line. I haven't seen anybody." And the police left the garden I was in, and they moved a couple of more gardens down and carried on searching. I'd got away with it. But at that point, now, bearing in mind, obviously, if they bring the helicopter out, I'm effed, But luckily, down in the southwest, we've got one helicopter, and they didn't bring it out that day. I sat there till about 11 o'clock that morning, hiding, waiting, laying down next to that little wall. I was not going to get caught that day. Now, when I did finally pluck up the courage to pop up back out again from that wall, bear in mind I've been in there for 4 hours now. I was fairly sure I hadn't heard a policeman or anything for a long time. I quickly just jumped out, got myself together, took my jumper off, so I was just walking with a t-shirt, and just tried to get out of there. There was no police about, they'd all gone. I went straight home and basically shot myself. Yeah, this was huge. So the next day I went to Nuki because I just thought, I need to get my head together. I need to just obviously tell them what had happened and everything. So this wasn't the kind of message I wanted to say over the phone or over a text message, because, you've always got to think back from when you get caught. And if you get caught, they tend to look at your phone and your messages and things. And, you know, if someone from Newquay had sent me to a house and then suddenly I do the robbery and then I'm phoning that guy from Newquay, it implies that he is ordering me to do things. Okay, so the less communication you have between you and the person giving you the orders is always best. All right. Saves you a little conspiracy charge there. So yeah, so now I'm heading back out to Newquay again. I went on the bus, went on public transport because I wasn't driving at the time. And this was another thing that really freaked me out, and it's another day that I'll never forget. These things happen sometimes, and now I'm getting 2 days in a row. So I was sat at the bus station. The buses all kind of pull in front of you. There's probably another 100 metres then to the actual road where the buses pull in. I'm sat there, it's a sunny day, listening to some music. Obviously I'm on a little bit of a heightened sense of alertness because of everything that's happened. And I'd noticed a couple of CID guys, because I'd obviously by this point I've been arrested so many times by police and by CID. They've searched my house, you know, I've spent hours with these guys. As I was walking up to the bus station, I'd noticed 2 CID guys that I'd known. They hadn't acknowledged me, they hadn't said anything, but I did pass them as I was going by. Then when I was walking towards the bus station at a crossroads, there was 2 policemen sat in a car. After I'd seen the CID, there was 2 policemen sat in a car, and one of them kind of looked at me and then just went about his business. Again, nothing unusual, but it kind of just ticked in my mind. So then when I was sat at the bus stop, I was waiting for the bus to pull in, and there was a bus in front of me parked up, and these 2 other police officers, so I've seen CID, I've seen 2 police officers in a car, and then I've seen 2 separate other police officers now suddenly walking into the bus station, and they start to walk in my general direction, and as they get closer, they walk, so they're separating and going either side of the bus that's in front of me. So I start to really switch on now and just think, hold on, did those CID guys like clock me? And then the rest of these police officers have just been driving around looking for me, waiting to kind of get me. And now, without me realising it, there's another circle going on, and I'm quickly heading on my way back into prison. So I sit there and I wait, quickly trying to make up a decision in my mind. Do I run now while there's still some distance in between me and these officers? But as soon as you do that, then you're obviously, if they're not here for me, then they might they might start chasing me, trying to work out why I'm running. Do I wait, thinking that the police officers might not be here for me, and then just get taken because I didn't run, and then spend the next few years in prison regretting the fact that I didn't run when I had the opportunity to? So I sat there and I waited. The police edged closer towards me. One of them, as they approached on the right-hand side, so they were on the side of the bus doorway, started to take out something from their pocket as they approached. Just as they got to the window of the bus, they knocked on the window of the bus and spoke to the bus driver. They weren't there for me. It was just a coincidence. But those are the kind of things that when you're in crime, and when you're on the run, and when you're constantly looking out, those are the kind of things that just mess with you, and you're constantly on edge. I jumped on my bus, I went to Newquay, I saw the boys, told them what had happened, and I think I spent a couple of days up there drowning my sorrows, just kind of keeping them out of the way. Obviously, I had a mask on. I had, I didn't know about DNA evidence. I didn't know what was going to occur with that. My mask had come partly off when I was being chased by the police. I did take my mask off, but it had come partly off when I ran out of the house. So I was fairly sure that nobody would get a decent description of me. At the time, I didn't know they had the hammer. So I didn't think they had any kind of fingerprints or anything like that also. So I thought I was in a fairly good position here to get away with this, if anything did happen. So bearing in mind now, obviously I've got a suspicion that the police are going to be coming for me, so I move house. I move out of my mum's house. I find my own place. I go and stay there. I'd already learned that you never tell probation where you've moved, because they're basically the police, and anything they know, the police know. So I'd never tell them where I worked. I'd never tell them where I lived, just so that just give you that extra layer of protection from the police, basically. So I was in a fairly good position again. I was feeling fairly secure. I was back selling drugs again. I was working less and less, but just back to my old lifestyle, basically partying at the weekend, selling drugs all week, and just living the life. One day, it all has to come to a head, though, doesn't it? I was sat at the workshop for the Forestry Commission up in Bodmin. We decided that day that we was going to have our breakfast first, and then we were going to go out for the day. We were sat in the office. There's about 3 or 4 of us there. Now the funny thing is that I was sat there with the park ranger, who goes out shooting deers and things, and he was sat there with a shotgun across his lap when the police came in. Now they didn't come in straight away. Actually, what they did is, and it was always a bit weird, a little bit sneaky, but keep an eye out for this if you're ever on the run. If any little weird situations happen, then just get on your toes, because we were sat there, and this bloke just walked into the office like a random dude. Bear in mind, we're not even in town; we're kind of out of the way somewhere. And he kind of walked into our office and was asking about a house he'd seen for sale, or a for sale sign, and he was, was that for sale sign gone? Blah blah blah. And we're like, what the fuck are you on about? Get out of here! And he kind of just wandered off, and then 2 minutes later, the police came in. Now, obviously, that guy was just a stooge to kind of see who was in there. The police came in. There's about 4 or 5 of them. They're what was known as a snatch squad. So they're 5 or 6 big blokes who come and wrestle people to the floor, because they must have seen that I bang out policemen, I chase people around with hammers. I might be a bit of a risk. So yeah, these guys come and took me. They put me in handcuffs in front of my my employees and my employers, sorry, and my friends. I remember vividly. It was a sunny day again, as it always would be. I remember vividly looking up at the sun and the sky, just getting that last little bit of fresh air and just a view, basically, before I got into the police car. Because once I entered that police car, that was going to be my last taste of freedom again for a while. I didn't know how they'd caught me, but you can't go doing these things and not expect to get caught. I ended up back in the police cells, going back through the system, and back in Exeter reception once again.